Wealth is not built in a bank account. Just take a second and let that really sink in. We spend so much of our time staring at spreadsheets, refreshing our banking apps, and obsessing over those visible numbers, thinking, okay, this is where wealth happens. But actually, as we're going to see today, true wealth creation begins miles away from those visible metrics. It's built somewhere else entirely, somewhere no spreadsheet is ever going to see.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the psychology behind becoming wealthy. We're going to decode the invisible architecture of the mind that literally decides who gets to keep their money. So no, we're not looking at stock picks or interest rates today. Instead, we're looking at the mental frameworks sitting underneath every single fortune. Think about it. Two people can earn the exact same income, live in the exact same city, and 10 years later, totally different financial destinies. That difference? It all comes down to one thing: their minds.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the invisible architecture. We're talking about the blueprint of the mind.
Which brings us to Section 2, scarcity versus abundance. These are the two fundamental mental operating systems that completely change how we process our financial resources.
So, economist Sendil Mullainathan introduces this incredibly powerful concept here. It's called the bandwidth tax. You see, a scarcity mindset isn't actually some conscious choice that a person makes. It's a forced neurological response. Your brain literally builds this response when resources are tight. When money is scarce, your mind narrows its focus and fixates almost entirely on today. And honestly, it makes perfect sense, right? Surviving today feels dangerous enough without even trying to think about tomorrow. Your mental bandwidth is quite literally taxed to its absolute limit, just handling the present moment.
So, scarcity is that narrowed mind we just talked about, heavily fixated on today. Abundance, on the flip side, isn't just about having a ton of cash in your wallet. It's really about having the mental room to plan way beyond the next bill. It allows for patience. It allows you to take calculated risks. It gives you the breathing room to say no to an easy dollar today simply because you're holding out for a much bigger return years from now. It is the ultimate enabler of delayed gratification.
But here's the really fascinating paradox. Scarcity often outlives actual scarcity. Seriously, you could have someone who has completely climbed the ladder, they're earning a multiple six-figure salary, but they're still making these panic-driven, fear-based decisions. Why? Because those decisions are rooted in a scarcity mindset they built years or maybe even decades earlier. Wealth actually starts as a mental shift long before it ever becomes a measurable financial one.
Let's move on to Section 3, Traps of Human Behavior. Welcome to the wild world of behavioral finance.
Take a look at this number, $100. This perfectly illustrates a concept known as loss aversion. Research actually shows that the psychological pain of losing this $100 hurts roughly twice as much as the joy you'd feel from gaining $100. This one single, incredibly powerful bias explains so much of our irrational behavior. It's exactly why people sell their rising investments way too early, just out of the fear of losing their gains, but then they hold on to their falling losing investments for way too long, just hoping to avoid locking in a permanent loss. It's crazy how our brains trick us. And then, oh man, we have this psychological hurdle, present bias. This is the pull of a smaller reward right now over a much larger reward later. It's the exact same human instinct that makes a bag of potato chips sitting on your kitchen counter look so much more appealing than the idea of going to the gym. Applied to your finances, a tangible night out with your friends today feels incredibly real and rewarding. But a conceptual retirement account 40 years away, that feels completely abstract. For us humans, the present almost always overrides the future.
So you're probably wondering, how do the wealthy actually beat these biases? Well, they rely on systems over willpower. We're talking about things like automatic investing, strict long-term rules, and concrete written plans. By automating their finances, they literally engineer psychology right out of the equation. Good decisions end up requiring absolutely zero daily willpower because, well, emotion never even gets a vote.
All right, Section 4, the identity shift. This is the core code of wealth building.
Most people ask the question, what should I do with my money? But wealth builders ask a very different, absolutely pivotal question. They ask, who do I need to become to hold on to money once I have it? This flips the entire script. It pivots your mindset from simply trying to acquire cash to completely transforming the kind of person you are on a fundamental core level.
Think about the difference between a goal and an identity. A goal sounds something like this: I want to save more. But an identity sounds like, I am someone who saves before I spend. See the difference? A goal relies heavily on motivation, and let's be real, motivation fades fast. An identity, however, relies on consistency. Research on goal setting consistently shows that people who tie their financial behavior to their core identity, saying, I am an investor, rather than I'm trying to invest, well, they sustain those habits far longer because consistency compounds over time.
This move from doing to becoming is everything. It emphasizes that you are actually changing your nature, not just checking off a list of daily tasks. Tying your financial behavior to your core identity is the quiet, often uncelebrated turning point in nearly every single successful wealth story out there.
Which leads us to Section 5, Deciding Under Pressure. This is the ultimate stress test.
Because the truth is, wealth isn't actually built in calm markets. It is built and solidified during chaotic moments of immense pressure. Think a sudden market crash, an unexpected job loss, or a massive medical bill. During a financial crisis, an absolute war breaks out inside your head. On one side, you have your emotional brain. It's wired for immediate safety, it's highly reactive, and it gets completely overwritten by fear. On the other side is your rational brain. Now, it's entirely capable of long-term, logical thinking, but it operates so much slower than the emotional brain. In a sudden crash, that emotional brain wants to grab the wheel and force you to sell everything just to find immediate safety.
So how do you win that internal war? It's simple. You pre-decide. You write an investment plan during a calm, boring month. Then you use that exact plan as your anchor when chaos inevitably hits, and you completely avoid those panic decisions. Wealthy people essentially train for a crisis in advance. By pre-deciding, they ensure they don't have to rely on fading willpower or battle their emotional brain when the panic sets in. The decision is already made for them.
And that leads to an incredibly powerful realization. Get this. Every financial crash in history has transferred wealth from the reactive to the patient. It's not raw intelligence that dictates who survives a market crash. No way. It is quite simply patience and the reliance on those pre-planned systems we just talked about. The patient people already decided ahead of time that they were absolutely not going to flinch. Because at the end of the day, money does not discriminate by intelligence. Money discriminates by behavior. It's shaped by a mind that either fights itself or works with itself. Scarcity or abundance, reaction or system, doing or becoming. The wealthiest people out there didn't just learn how to make money, they learned how to think. And that invisible shift in thinking is where every fortune actually begins. So I want to leave you with this one question to reflect on. If wealth really starts in the mind, who do you need to become today to keep the money you make tomorrow?